Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today we're talking about the newest League of Legends update, patch 25.20. And honestly, this one's a big deal. It's the official Worlds patch, which means whatever you're seeing here is what the pros are playing on right now. And it's also shaping the solo queue meta in a pretty interesting way. Riot's clearly trying to balance things so that both high-level play and the average ranked grind feel good, but in the process, a few champions and systems have taken some pretty noticeable shifts. So let's break it down and talk through what this patch actually means for you, your games, and your favorite picks. So first off, Riot's made some adjustments that hit right at the heart of the jungle. They've gone after the classic stat check champions, Briar, Volibear, and Warwick. You know, those picks that just run at you, mash a few buttons, and either explode you or heal back to full depending on how the fight goes. Those have been a bit too dominant, especially for players who rely on raw numbers rather than mechanics. The nerfs don't completely get them, but they're enough to make you think twice before autopiloting your clears and all-ins. Volibear in particular feels it the most. His AP ratios were toned down, which means those fun full-app one-shots aren't nearly as threatening now. Briar lost some sustained reliability, and Warwick's early aggression got trimmed just enough to make his ganks riskier if they don't connect perfectly. This is Riot trying to slow the pace of the jungle down and reward players who actually think about their pathing and timing instead of just relying on power spikes. And speaking of champions getting rewarded for skill, there are a few interesting buffs that aim to reward players who actually master their picks. Malphite, Fizz, and Camille all got small but meaningful boosts that make a difference once you really understand their kits. For Malphite, his early game armor and E damage were touched up, so he's not just that press R to win guy anymore. He actually trades better in lane, and that makes him a bit more flexible in matchups. Fizz is another winner here. His early game was smoothed out just enough that he can contest lane pressure instead of getting bullied until level 6. That's huge for Fizz mains who know how to read windows for all-ins or roams. Camille also benefits because her damage scaling got some love, rewarding players who manage spacing and cooldowns well instead of brute-forcing trades. These changes are subtle, but they add a bit of depth back into the game. Champions that scale with experience and game sense are always healthy for the meta. Now let's talk about Azir. He's been a problem in pro play for a long time. The Bird Emperor's skill expression is through the roof, and at high levels, he's always one of those champions that either dominates the draft phase or completely vanishes depending on tuning. Riot's tweak this time is meant to shift his power away from his early guaranteed wave control and more toward his scaling. What that means is that you'll see fewer lane stomping Azirs who just sit mid, shove, and deny your farm, while also being unkillable. Instead, he's got to work harder early on, but he scales more smoothly into late game. This change won't make him suddenly broken in solo queue, but it definitely makes him feel a bit more balanced across skill brackets. For the pros, this opens up the mid lane pool a bit more. Think picks like Anivia, Veigar, or even Fizz, which got those nice buffs, could sneak into drafts depending on how the matchups go. Riot also made some pretty spicy item and system tweaks this patch, and these might affect your builds and playstyle more than you realize. The first one that really caught people's attention is the change to Blade of the Ruined King. It now takes 3 hits to proc instead of just 1, and that's actually huge. Blade has been one of those go-to sustain and damage items for a ton of ad champions, things like Vayne, Kog'Maw, and even some bruisers who wanted that on-hit lifesteal feel. With this change, it's not going to feel as great in short trades or quick burst skirmishes. Instead, it rewards consistent extended fights where you can actually stack it up. That means ADC players will have to think about positioning and fight timing a bit differently, and some champions might shift their core builds entirely. If you're used to dashing in for quick burst trades with Blade, you might find it less forgiving now. Another interesting change is to Zeke's Convergence. Its buff duration went from 5 seconds to 12 seconds, and that's a way bigger window for synergy plays. Imagine pairing it with champs like Ashe, Leona, or Rakan, those moments where you both engage and the ADC follows up. With a 12-second duration, you can actually plan your engage windows more flexibly instead of praying your ADC reacts instantly. It's small on paper, but in coordinated games or even duo queue, this makes supports feel a lot more impactful during mid and late fights. And here's something for the competitive scene specifically. The lane swap detection in top lane got extended from 3 minutes to 4. Now, this might sound niche if you're mostly playing ranked solo queue, but it's an important adjustment for Worlds level play. Lane swaps were starting to become a sneaky strategy again, and Riot's pushing back to keep early game setups fair. It means teams can't just instantly dodge bad matchups or cheese objectives right off the bat. For the average player, it's a good reminder that Riot's still actively thinking about how pros manipulate the early map, which is cool to see because it trickles down to how the game feels even in regular matches. Oh, and one more neat thing. Riot's testing a new quality of life change in NA and OCE that stops teammates from banning your hovered champion. We've all been there, right? You lock in your comfort pick, and someone decides to grief by banning it just to be funny or out of spite. This new rule prevents that, and if it works well, Riot's likely to roll it out globally. It's a small move toward reducing frustration in Champ Select, which is honestly one of the most toxic parts of the game experience, so that's a win. Now, let's talk about what all these changes actually mean for the meta. The jungle landscape is going to look a little different now that the stat check champs are toned down. With Briar, Volibear, and Warwick less dominant, we're probably going to see more skill-based or utility-focused junglers take their place. Champions like Pantheon, who actually got a small buff this patch, are going to feel more comfortable contesting objectives and making early ganks happen. His clear feels smoother, and his early fights are just a touch more forgiving. On the other side, champions like Graves are getting nudged toward bulkier bruiser-style builds rather than pure lethality. So, if you're used to one-shotting squishies with Graves, you might want to start experimenting with items like Black Cleaver or even Sterox to keep yourself relevant in extended fights. Top lane feels a bit more diverse now too. With Malphite's buffs, he's definitely worth revisiting if you've been avoiding him. He can actually stand up better in lane against bruisers and physical poke champions. And since ADC builds are shifting slightly with the Blade of the Ruined King change, Malphite's natural tankiness and anti-ad kit feel even better in the current environment. Wukong, on the other hand, got hit slightly with nerfs that reduce his sustained pressure in lane and team fights. He's still playable, but you'll have to manage your trade smarter and rely more on your team follow-up than solo carry moments. Mid lane might actually be the most exciting role right now. Fizz, Anivia, and Veigar are in excellent spots after this patch. Fizz especially feels smoother to play early. His damage trade patterns are more consistent, so if you're good at reading your opponent's cooldowns, you can snowball lane faster than before. Anivia's buffs help her keep control in the mid-game with stronger poke and a bit more reliable farming power. Veigar has always been a comfort pick for players who like to scale and punish positioning mistakes, and this patch didn't directly touch him, but the surrounding nerfs to aggressive junglers and certain mages make his life a little easier. If you enjoy controlling fights and punishing overextensions, Veigar's probably going to climb in popularity again. For bot lane, the Blade of the Ruined King change really is the headline. You'll feel it immediately if you play champions that rely on fast burst trades. Sustained DPS carries who can keep autoing, like Jinx or Kai'Sa, still get solid value from it. But if you're a short trade specialist, maybe think about lifesteal alternatives or delaying Blade in your build order. Supports, on the other hand, are feasting this patch. The Zeke's Convergence change makes engaged supports way stronger when they coordinate properly. Those longer synergy windows mean you can chain crowd control and damage far more consistently. And it rewards communication and awareness. Even in solo queue, if you ping your ADC or track cooldowns, you'll start to see the difference. Riot's also quietly made some quality of life and behind-the-scenes updates to streamer mode and queue systems, mostly to help protect high-profile players from ghosting or griefing. Even if you're not a streamer, it's nice to know they're experimenting with visibility and anonymity settings that might eventually trickle down to the general player base. So overall, patch 2520 feels like one of those updates that doesn't just tweak numbers. It subtly reshapes how people think about the game. Riot's basically rewarding players who understand their champion's nuances and can adapt to shifting item dynamics, rather than players who rely purely on overtuned picks. It's a patch that favors patience and understanding over brute force. If you're the kind of player who likes figuring out small optimizations and learning how to outplay with timing and precision, this meta is going to feel good. That said, don't be surprised if the early days of this patch feel chaotic. Whenever Riot touches the jungle this much, people experiment wildly. You'll see some off-meta picks pop up, some new clear paths get discovered, and a handful of what on earth was that plays while everyone adjusts. But give it a week or two and things will start to stabilize. We'll probably see more varied team comps, a mix of scaling and skirmish styles, and maybe even a few surprising champs creep back into the spotlight once Worlds drafts start influencing the community again.